The words of writers have brought joy to millions, but tonight we're going to talk about writers who kill. Hello and welcome to Goodnight Internet, the nightly internet show that's happening on the internet tonight. Aaron, do you like books?
I do like a book, yeah.
I love books.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to ask you what do you think, but it's quite clearly obvious.
This is you can only see two of the shelves. There are two more. Those two are double stacked. Oh, you're zooming out. Oh my God. Oh. And then there's more above, more books. Yeah. And I recently threw out a couple hundred books. I love books.
Yeah.
I love reading. I love either being transported to a whole different world, a whole different point of view, or I like learning about stuff. I know that's not fashionable. I know learning's not in. It's not cool. But I like picking up a good non-fiction book and finding out all about quantum physics or how the Nazis worked.
Wow.
Not just diverse. Those two. But recently it's come to my attention that not all writers are good people. Dun, dun, dun. Very sinister. This piece was inspired by a little story going around on the internet at the moment. The story of a Nancy Crampton Brodie.
Nope, not
a best-selling author, but an author nonetheless, and the author of the little red book, How to Murder Your Husband.
Okay, slightly sinister title.
Unfortunately for Nancy, she's just been arrested. Guess what for?
Murdering her husband?
Yes, exactly.
What?
So she has written a book called How to Murder Your Husband, and she has been charged with the murder of her husband. You couldn't make that up. People would think you were stupid. If you were a writer and put that in a book, they'd be like, no.
Yeah.
I think it's proof that there's been a glitch in the Matrix.
Yeah, possibly.
And all the power of the brain that powers the universe, me, obviously, it's the only one I know actually exists, has stopped working and things are just falling apart like a wet cake.
Or maybe she thought she was being really clever and going, nobody will believe I did it if I wrote a book saying how I do it.
So we're going to talk about some other killer writers. Yeah, you can have that one for free.
Okay, so it's a trend. Cool.
Yes, there's quite a few. And we're going to start with someone quite famous who you will have heard of. If we were to talk about notorious murderers, allegedly, who got away with it, who would you think of?
First name that comes to mind is O.J. Simpson.
Yes, so O.J. Simpson, notoriously acquitted of the murder of his wife and his wife's lover. Did you know he wrote a book? Or he co-wrote. He had ghost-written a book.
Okay.
So a book about the murder that allegedly took place.
Okay, so something from his perspective, what happened and stuff. Yeah, that's fair enough.
So the book that O.J. Simpson wrote, or co-wrote, was If I Did It, Confessions of the Killer.
What?
If I Did It, Confessions of the Killer.
Who does that? O.J. Simpson, obviously, but...
It gets even better. We'll ping up the cover to the book now.
I will give a bit of background on this.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
In that, far as I'm aware, Simpson lost the right to actually publish this himself.
Oh, okay.
And Brian?
Yeah, so first of all, that cover. So that cover says, I did it, and the if is hidden away at the top of the I.
It is, yeah.
So it says, I did it, Confessions of the Killer. He lost a court case. He wasn't convicted of the killing of his wife and her lover, but he was found guilty in a civil court and ordered to pay damages to the families of the deceased. And so the rights to that book reverted to the family of one of his victims, Ron Goodman, and the Goodman family now own any money that's paid for that book goes to them. And the original publisher still, who are quite happy to publish this book and to take people's money and siphon some of it off to O.J. Simpson. So it's slightly more ethical, but it's not quite free range and organic.
Yeah.
It's just not quite as bad as it could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So we have the writer, the French philosopher, Marxist writer and critic Louis Althusser. I think I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah.
He killed his wife, Helene Rittman, by strangulation.
Charming.
Apparently, after the murder, he stumbled outside. He was in his 60s at this point. They'd been together a long time. He stumbled outside crying out, "Oh, despair, I have killed my wife."
Oh, okay. So he might have had like a breakdown of some form and lost control kind of thing.
And so rather than being charged, he was committed to various psychiatric institutions for the rest of his life. He lived another 12, 13 years. Writers having breakdowns and such like is not a new thing. No. I mean, you take Nietzsche, for instance, spent the last 10 years of his life or so in a mental asylum. Not being particularly productive. Althusser, however, was quite productive and continued to write while he was incarcerated.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Including The Future Lasts a Long Time, his posthumous memoir. Guess what the opening page is all about?
Him murdering his wife.
It's a first-person account of him murdering his wife.
God.
Telling the reader exactly how he did it and how it felt.
Do you think it might be an attempt at catharsism? It's like, I need to tell somebody how this happened because I'm trying to process it in my own mind. This is the best way I can process it. But
it's really odd. You can check it out online and read it. It is quite harrowing in its own way. It's just why I'm not going to read it out now because I wouldn't want to force anyone who's not willing to check it out. But do, if you're of a morbid sensibility, because the way he writes it is if his body's kind of doing it on its own, and then he realizes what's happened. He's like, I'm giving her a massage. I've done this a 1,000 times. Yeah. And then suddenly she's dead. It just kind of happens. It's really quite sinister and quite chilling.
Okay, we'll have a look at that.
Yeah. Another interesting case of a writer who has killed is... He has been convicted. This one's really interesting as well.
Okay.
Is Michael Peterson, who was the subject of the Netflix documentary series The Staircase.
Not seen it, but okay.
So, if you're not 100%, if you want to watch that and don't want to know what happens, although it's a matter of public record now, please just fast forward a minute or two. His wife, Kathleen Atwater, was found at the bottom of a staircase, hence the documentary The Staircase. He rang up, said she'd fallen. There were multiple investigations. He was tried and such like. And eventually served, I think it's 86 months in prison for her manslaughter, not her murder.
Okay.
Now, I didn't know this was a thing till I read this case. I thought it was really interesting. He took the Alford plea.
Alford plea?
Yeah, the Alford plea, something that happens in America. So, if you take the Alford plea, you plead guilty because there is enough evidence gathered against you to convict you, but you still maintain that you didn't do it.
Okay.
It's the weirdest thing I've ever read. I don't understand how that works.
Yeah. No, it doesn't entirely... I mean, not all...
that's what my face did earlier when I was reading about this.
That's bizarre. I mean, theoretically, the evidence might not actually be applicable to you. So it is possible that, some evidence that might seem like it indicates you might actually indicate somebody else. So it's kind of sort of makes sense, but doesn't at the same time. That's weird.
You kind of get that thing of like a plea bargain, of getting a discounted sentence, etc., but you're not actually saying you did it. You're just like, you're going to find me guilty anyway, so I may as well say it was me, and then I don't have to spend as much time in prison because he'd already done 90-something months in prison, so he just went free at that point.
Right, okay. That seems a bit...
It's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Definitely going to have to watch that, just look into that a bit more, because it's very interesting.
Yeah, he wasn't a well-known writer, but he was a writer of several books, military-themed, I do believe. We then move on to Anne Perry, a novelist famed for the Thomas Pitt and William Monk series. I think they're crime.
It does vaguely ring a bell.
Novels. I think she's published over 75 books when I did my research. Now,
I'll explain why I've seen it. I wouldn't have read any of them, but probably seen them because there's that many on the shelf.
Yeah. She has murdered someone and spent time in prison for it.
Bloody hell, okay.
So when she was younger, under her real name of Juliet Hulme, herself and Pauline Parker murdered in 1954 Pauline Parker's mother.
Wow.
Yeah. They had a kind of codependent, obsessive relationship going on.
Yeah.
But because they were children legally at the time, they only did 5 years in prison. If you'd like to know more, there is a film about it called Heavenly Creatures, directed by Peter Jackson of Lord of the Rings fame. But she's been quite upfront in saying, yes, I did it, and she has done her time, and she is a reformed member of society. And it was a long, long time ago, but obviously how you feel about that will vary.
Yeah.
We then move on to someone who, when I was reading about him, I think he sounded like a bit of a hero.
Okay.
Hans Verlader. He was a German writer during the period of Nazism in Germany. He was asked by Goebbels to write propaganda.
Okay.
And wrote subversive propaganda that didn't quite do what it was supposed to. A very big risk at the time, but he was kind of subtly critical of the German state, and has quite a good reputation for doing that.
So writing stuff that was just somebody who's pompous and believed in themselves so much, they'd read it and go, "Oh, of course, this is perfect." But anybody with half an ounce of sense would go, "This is really, really ripping into them."
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I mean, you have to be fairly brave.
Yeah.
In order to do something like that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that. I'm not that brave, because we know what Nazis did to people they disagreed with. So, very brave man. He decided, however, with his lover Hans Dietrich, that they would have a suicide pact and die together.
Yeah.
However, they didn't want to just kill themselves. They wanted to do it in an honourable way, so they decided to have a duel with pistols.
Oh, okay.
Guess what happened next?
One of them didn't fire, and so one of them was killed, and the other one wasn't.
Pretty much. So they both fired.
Oh, okay.
Hans was killed.
Yeah.
Oh, well, they've got the same name.
Yes, that's what I was trying to avoid.
I may have got that wrong. And got the name wrong, but I think it's right. So Hans Dietrich, the lover, was killed. Hans Verlader, the writer, was missed.
Oh.
And so he's there over the corpse of his lover, distraught.
Yeah.
He then shot himself in the chest and survived.
Oh, poor sod.
So he tried to follow his lover to the grave. And failed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I've got
There's
a lot of respect for him, actually.
Yes.
So it seems like like you said, it seems like he was desperately trying to be as honourable as he possibly could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We then have the British case of Kenneth Halliwell, a novelist famed for The Boy Hairdresser, who killed another writer.
Oh, wow.
Makes this one slightly more interesting. I've read quite a bit about this one in the past, but I'll spare you all the gory details. But he murdered his boyfriend, the playwright Joe Orton, in a fit of jealous rage with a hammer, and then killed himself by sleeping pill. So he's the only writer to have managed to successfully kill two writers. Bit of a record.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit dark today. I'm sorry, Aaron. We'll get some good news out soon and get over it.
Yeah.
The final one, though, is a writer who not only killed someone, but credits that murder or that death with actually being the reason why he became a writer in the first place, or was able to become a successful writer, which was William Burroughs, famed author of The Naked Lunch, etc.
Okay.
You know a bit about this. What do you do?
Okay, yeah, I do.
I've talked a lot.
Yeah. So he's quite famous for going on sort of massive benders as such.
Yes, he's seems to have been addicted to pretty much every other drug, and the drug that gets you off the drug.
Yes, yeah. Lots of them. But he used to have supposedly have a little trick he'd do with his wife. I believe it was
Joan Voller,
where he would take a pistol out.
Yeah.
Place. Believe it was an apple, but I could be wrong on that.
It's a tumbler of water. And then would shoot it off the top of her head. Yes.
Even at the height of his whatever drugs he happened to be on at the time, he'd be able to accurately shoot off the top of her head because he's so
Yes.
skilled. Except one day he wasn't and shot her in the face and killed
Yes. Yeah.
her.
So in 1951, they performed that trick after a long night of drink and drugs, and she was killed at age 28. He went to the US, back to the US, because he was in Mexico at the time. He was tried in his absence and found guilty of manslaughter, not murder, because he didn't mean to shoot her for her to die.
Oh, right, yeah,
It
okay.
was an accident, but he was being an idiot.
Yeah.
How long do you think you get for accidentally shooting someone in the face in Mexico in 1951?
5 years?
2 years suspended sentence
What?
that he never went back and served.
Right.
Not that you really need to serve a suspended sentence.
No, but
Later on, became a very famous writer.
yeah.
And in the introduction to his novel Queer, he credits the incident with being the only reason, or the main reason why he became a writer, saying that it awoke an ugly spirit within him that he had to deal with, and the only way he could deal with it was through writing stuff down. So he says, without the death of my wife, I would never have become a writer.
Sure, that makes her family feel massively better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
So if you have any cool stories or interesting stories about creative people using their creativity for dark purposes, pop them in the comments below. We'd love to hear them. We find them really interesting. I love stuff like this. I like a bit of the darkness every now and then. If you really, really like what we do, then please click like. It's the law. If you like something, you have to click like. Otherwise, the internet police come round and tell you off.
Yes.
They
yeah.
take your-
It's like a literal slap on the wrist for a start, but if you don't do it the second time,
And they'll take your cats away and send them to the meme farm to be farmed for memes. That's what happens. And if you really, really like what we do, then click and subscribe. Means that you'll get to see every weeknight when we release a video. And if you really, really, really like it, and you want to be our bestest friends in the whole wide world, if you tell your friends, then the more people that watch this, the more fancy stuff we can do, the more cool stuff we can do, the more things we can get to put on the desk. Because otherwise we're going to start running out of things.
and I might have to sit in the desk. And
Yes.
You don't want to see anything above here.
No, I mean, he's naked
Not
from the
below
waist
here.
down right now.
I am. It's quite warm in here, and it makes me comfortable.
I would write it down, but I'm afraid I'd then have to murder you after I'd written down the description
Yeah, I think that'd probably be best, to be honest.
of your swirling tentacle-like lower limbs. Good night, Internet.